Morgan Phillips was born in London to English and Australian parents. She has 4 brothers. Morgan's youngest brother and her grew up in London, but moved to France when they were 5 to start school. After a few years, they returned to the UK, continuing their education in London and Bath. Morgan emphasised that growing up, there was always a focus on our family and being united. The Australian Institute of Family Studies states the main groups that have come to Australia from Northern and Western Europe are largely indistinguishable from each other in terms of family values. They go on to discuss how this attribute of Europeans has truly developed Australia as a nation. In addition to this, Morgan explained how birthdays were a massive focus growing up, as well as Easter, Christmas and Guy Fawkes Night. These are important in Morgan's heritage, which is carried over to Australia, with Christmas being a large part of our identity. It is clear that the English culture has helped shape Australia as a nation. It was the English that colonised Australia in 1788, explored and mapped the continent, created industry, and truly developed the nation. From here, the gold rushes and immigration schemes saw the development of a multicultural society with political, social, cultural and economic influences from other nations. Baldassar and Trigger express that it is since the British colonised Australia that a complex national culture was formed. However, there is also the significance of the English wanting to stop immigration with the White Australia policy. This was a catalyst for the development of a nation that were not afraid to be vocal about their point of view. Australians standing forward and freely expressing themselves has been witnessed since the repression of multiculturalism by the British. There was the Mabo case in 1992, countless political debates, and even Mac Horden outing a competitor as a drug cheat at the 2016 Olympics. In 1999, Morgan and her partner moved to Australia, where they really started experiencing the culture and this non-acceptance influence from Britain. There may have been a transition to a multicultural policy in the 1970s, but Morgan stated that Australia liked to refer to itself as a melting pot, but there was no melting. All the communities live quite separately. Thus, this hostility towards other nations from the English did shape some Australians' views on other cultures. Morgan clearly witnessed this, and it is once again become apparent now with the response to terrorism. Of course, this is not the view of every Australian, but as Jacques Bowes highlights, Australia is starting to become a more polarised nation. Therefore, the multicultural identity we have been labelled, and the response of the British has been significant to the development of Australia as a nation, both positively and negatively. Australia has now developed its own sense of identity, its own nationhood. This can be seen through events of federation in 1901, the battle at Gallipoli in 1915, and even our developing acceptance of the Aboriginals. But as the BBC points out, Australian society is still strongly influenced by its British heritage through art, literature, drama, music, fashion, sport and cuisine. Therefore, the history of Britain and Australia is very much tied together and will continue to be for many years to come.
Created using Powtoon.